Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. This time, we're going after something pretty big. The essence of truth itself.
That's right.
We're not just looking at, specific truths or facts or anything, but like, what makes anything true at all?
Right.
And to help us unpack all of this, we'll be diving into an excerpt from Martin Heidegger's 1943 essay on the essence of truth.
Yeah.
Now, I'll admit, Heidegger can be a little bit dense,
hmm
but stick with us. I promise we'll pull out the good stuff together.
What I find so interesting about Heidegger is that he doesn't settle for those, the standard definitions of truth.
Okay.
He actually claims that untruth is, it's a vital part of truth itself.
Wait. How can that be?
Right.
How can untruth be a part of truth? Isn't it kind of the opposite? I mean, if we're being honest, hasn't that kind of been our go-to understanding of truth?
I think so for most of us, yeah. I think we think of truth as sort of a matching game.
Okay.
You have a statement and it matches reality, and
Yeah.
bam, it's true.
Yep.
And this idea has a really long history in philosophy and theology.
Okay.
It's rooted in, the belief that the world was created according to a divine plan.
Mm-hmm.
And things are true if they align with that plan.
Right. So like if I say the sun is shining
Yeah.
and the sun actually is shining,
Yeah,
then my statement is true, like case closed.
exactly.
But Heidegger's kind of suggesting here that there's more to the story.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, he argues that, just focusing on whether or not a sentence is right or wrong, that misses a crucial point.
Okay.
Truth isn't just about sentences. It's about this revealing of things as they truly are.
Okay.
And he uses this phrase, letting beings be.
Okay.
And it means allowing things to kind of show themselves to us without trying to force them into our limited human frameworks.
So instead of, looking at a painting
Yeah.
and judging it based on whether or not it's a good copy of like a real life scene or something, it's more about appreciating it for what it is, the colors, the brush strokes, the artist's unique expression.
That's a perfect analogy.
Right.
That's exactly what he wants us to do, is engage with the world in a way that allows things to show us their truth,
Right.
rather than us constantly trying to, force them into our category.
Okay, so he wants us to be more open and receptive to how we understand the world.
Exactly.
Okay. This is where it gets interesting for me, though, because he goes on to say that the very essence of truth is actually freedom.
Yes.
Freedom.
Yeah, and this always throws people off at first.
Yeah, I mean, how can freedom be
Right.
the essence of truth?
Exactly.
Because isn't freedom about doing whatever I want?
Right, you would think.
What does that have to do with truth?
Right.
That doesn't seem...
It seems like anything goes right.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Like anything goes. If freedom is the essence of truth.
Yeah, that's a natural reaction. But
Yeah.
Heidegger's idea of freedom is much more profound than that.
Okay.
He's not talking about just acting on whims. He's talking about a deeper kind of freedom, the freedom to let go of our preconceived notions,
Okay.
to allow things to reveal themselves without imposing our own biases or agendas.
So it's about being open to new perspectives, even if they challenge like what we already believe.
Exactly.
It's like admitting we don't have all the answers.
Right, and that's where it gets really tricky, because then Heidegger says, okay, well, truth also involves concealment.
Okay, now hold on.
Yeah,
How can truth be about revealing and concealing?
right.
That sounds like a paradox.
It is a paradox,
Yeah.
and that's what makes it so interesting.
Okay.
He's saying that by focusing on specific things, we're always going to inevitably hide the bigger picture.
Okay.
We become so fixated on these details that we miss the underlying interconnectedness of everything.
It's like when you're so engrossed in your phone
Right?
that you totally miss a beautiful sunset happening right in front of you.
Yeah.
You're so focused on this one little thing
Right.
that you're missing this huge truth. That's unfolding right there.
Yeah.
And I think we've all been there,
Oh, absolutely.
right?
We all fall into those traps
Yeah.
of limited perspective.
Yeah. And that leads us to another key concept from Heidegger, this notion of errancy.
Right.
So from what I understand, errancy is basically saying we're all prone to being led astray by our limited perspectives.
Yes, and he's very clear that this isn't because we're stupid
Okay.
or intentionally trying to deceive ourselves.
Right.
It's simply part of the human condition.
Okay.
We're finite beings.
Yeah.
Which means our perspective will always be incomplete.
And I mean, think about all the times that we've been absolutely convinced of something
Oh, yeah.
and then later found out we were totally wrong.
All the time.
It's humbling,
It is.
but it's also pretty funny when you think about it.
It is, yeah.
We've all been there.
Right.
Like, that's errancy in action right there.
It is.
And it's something that we need to be aware of.
A constant reminder to stay humble and keep questioning our assumptions.
So where does philosophy fit into all of this? Because it seems like Heidegger is saying that philosophy has a special role to play in this whole truth-seeking thing.
He believes that philosophy is about thoughtfully questioning everything we take for granted.
Okay.
It's not about blindly accepting the status quo
Okay.
or just, getting swept away by whatever the latest trend is.
Right.
It's about seeking the bigger picture of truth, even if we never fully grasp it.
Okay, so we've gone from this, simple definition of truth as correspondence to this much more complex and fascinating view where truth is about freedom, revealing what's hidden, and constantly, questioning our assumptions.
Yeah, and that's a lot to take in.
It is.
But we're going to unpack it further in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Picking up where we left off last time, I think it's worth digging a little deeper into this idea of truth as freedom.
Yeah.
It really challenges the way we usually think about how we arrive at, understanding at all.
You're right. It is a head scratcher.
Yeah.
Because if truth isn't about us, forcing our views on the world, how do we even get to a place where we can say, like, okay, we understand this?
Right.
It's a little slippery, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think Heidegger's really careful to say that this freedom he's talking about, it's not about, isolating yourself from the world or rejecting all forms of knowledge.
Right.
It's more about cultivating a certain kind of attitude towards knowing a way of approaching the world.
Okay, so it's not about being passive.
Exactly.
Or just, letting ideas float by.
No, it's much more active than that.
Okay.
He uses this phrase, letting beings be.
Right. We touched on that.
Yeah, and it sounds a little hands-off, right? Like we're just supposed to sit back and truth will magically reveal itself.
Yeah, it does sound a little mystical when you put it like that.
Right, but it's not passive observation.
So what does it actually look like? This letting beings be?
Well, it's more like active engagement.
Okay.
Where we allow things to show themselves as they are without immediately trying to, categorize them or define them.
Okay.
It's about resisting that urge to, force everything into our mental boxes and just being willing to see things with fresh eyes.
So it's more about paying attention and being receptive to what's right in front of us.
Exactly.
Rather than, jumping to conclusions based on what we already think we know.
Yeah, it almost sounds like mindfulness in a way.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
a willingness to step back from our habitual ways of thinking.
Okay.
And create space for new possibilities.
I'm starting to see how this connects back to the idea of freedom.
Right.
It's about freeing ourselves from, all those constraints of our own biases, our assumptions, so we can actually experience the world in a more authentic way.
Exactly. And it sounds pretty liberating when you put it that way.
It does. It really does.
Yeah. And this process of letting go and opening up, it's not a one-time thing.
Right.
This is an ongoing practice. It's like questioning and refinement.
Yeah.
We're never really done with this letting beings be because our understanding is always evolving.
It makes me think of like the scientific method.
Right.
Scientists don't just accept things at face value.
Right.
They're constantly testing, observing, revising their hypotheses based on new evidence.
That's a great connection.
Yeah.
Because that really embodies the spirit of, open inquiry that Heidegger's talking about.
Yeah.
It's about being willing to be wrong, to acknowledge the limitations of our current knowledge, and to constantly refine our understanding.
But this raises an important question for me.
Okay.
If we're always in danger of erring,
yeah,
as Heidegger suggests,
right,
how can we ever be sure that we're on the right track?
That's a question that Heidegger really grapples with.
Yeah.
And he doesn't shy away from how difficult it is.
Right.
And he basically says that errancy, this tendency to be led astray, it's not something we can just eliminate. Like it's woven into the fabric of our existence.
So being wrong is just part of the deal.
Yeah, it is.
That's a little unsettling.
It is.
It makes you wonder if we can really know anything for sure.
It does. But he also says that by acknowledging our own errancy, and confronting it, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
Okay. I think I'm starting to get it.
Yeah.
It's like those optical illusions where you think you see one thing, but then you realize there's a whole other image hidden there.
Yeah.
And once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Right.
Your perspective has completely shifted.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, and those shifts can be pretty profound.
Absolutely.
So Heidegger is suggesting that our errors are misinterpretations.
Yeah.
They could actually be opportunities for insight.
Yes, they can shake us out of our complacency.
Okay.
And force us to re-examine things.
So instead of fearing being wrong, we should embrace it.
Exactly.
As a chance to learn and grow.
Yeah.
And expand our understanding.
Yeah, to move closer to a more, authentic grasp of truth.
Heidegger's not giving us any easy answers here.
He's not.
This is a lot to chew on.
He is challenging us to think differently about truth and its complexities.
Yeah.
And to recognize that the quest for truth is not about achieving absolute certainty,
right,
but engaging in a continual process of questioning, exploration, and self-reflection.
Which honestly sounds a lot more interesting.
It does.
Than just having all the answers right.
It's a much more fulfilling way.
Yeah, this has been incredibly thought-provoking.
It has.
But I have to admit, it is a lot to digest.
It's like peeling back layers of an onion.
Yeah, there's always another layer.
Right.
But I think that's the beauty of it.
I think so, too.
Engaging with Heidegger's work.
Yeah, it pushes us to examine our most fundamental assumptions.
It's like he's holding up a mirror.
Yeah.
To our own thinking.
Exactly.
And asking us to look closely at what we see.
Even the parts that we might not like.
Yeah.
Right? And that can be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But ultimately rewarding.
But we're not quite done yet.
We're not.
Because we've talked about the theoretical side.
Right.
But I think the real challenge is...
Yeah, how do we put this into practice?
Exactly. How do we actually cultivate this freedom in our everyday lives?
Right.
How do we approach the world in a way that honors, both the revealing and the concealing,
yeah,
the truth and the untruth?
Yeah.
I guess that's what we'll explore in the final part of our deep dive. All right, so we're back and wrapping up our deep dive on Heidegger's On the Essence of Truth.
Yeah.
And this has been quite a journey.
It has.
We've gone from truth with a capital T,
yeah,
right to this idea that it's way more nuanced than that.
Yeah, much more slippery.
It's like a constant process
yeah,
of revealing and concealing at the same time.
Right. And we can't forget about errancy.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That we're all prone to, being led astray.
Yeah.
And it's not because we're, not intelligent. It's because we're human.
Right.
Our perspective is limited.
Yeah. And he's kind of suggesting that, like, being wrong is a stepping stone.
It is.
To a deeper understanding.
Yeah, I think so.
Which, when you think about it, that's kind of mind-blowing.
It is.
It makes you wonder if we can really be sure of anything.
Right.
So in this final part, I really want to try to get practical.
Yeah.
Like, how do we live with this more complex view of truth?
Right.
How does it actually change how we move through the world?
Well, Heidegger wasn't big on giving step-by-step instructions or anything.
Okay.
But I think his ideas do offer a powerful framework for engaging with the world in a way that's more thoughtful,
right,
more honest maybe.
Okay, so no magic formula here.
Right.
But where do we even begin to apply this stuff?
Right.
Because it sounds very, philosophical and abstract.
Yeah, well, I think a big takeaway is learning to be more open and humble in how we approach knowledge.
Okay.
Remember letting beings be. That means allowing things to show themselves to us. Right.
Without immediately, judging them or interpreting them.
So less like knee-jerk reactions and more like taking a breath and actually listening.
Exactly.
I can see how that would apply to so many things.
It does.
From reading the news to even like talking to someone who has totally different political views than you.
Absolutely. And think about how often we form an opinion based on just, a headline or a soundbite.
Right.
Heidegger would say, dig deeper.
Okay.
Consider multiple perspectives.
Yeah.
And most importantly, question your own assumptions.
I mean, haven't you had that experience where like you've totally changed your mind about something?
Yeah, all the time.
When you finally got more information?
Absolutely. It's like realizing there were all these dimensions to a story you didn't even consider.
Yeah, it's humbling.
It is.
But also, it makes life a lot more interesting.
It does. Heidegger was all about embracing that complexity.
Okay.
Especially, today.
Where everything feels so polarized.
Right.
Being able to hold that nuance, that ambiguity, it's so valuable.
And Heidegger also seems to suggest that our mistakes, those times when we're totally wrong, they can actually be incredibly valuable learning opportunities.
Right.
I think we tend to view being wrong as like a failure.
Yeah.
But he sees it totally differently.
He does. He says, instead of beating ourselves up for getting it wrong, We can use it to refine our understanding.
Okay.
To course correct and get closer to, reality.
It's like you only learn how something works.
Yeah.
When you have to fix it after it breaks.
Exactly.
I love that.
Right.
So it's about embracing the journey.
Yeah.
With all of its stumbles and wrong turns.
Exactly.
And realizing that our understanding of truth is always a work in progress.
It is. We're never going to get to that final answer.
Right. And it's okay.
And that's okay.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
yeah.
What is the one thing that you hope our listeners will take away from all of this?
I think for me, it's about cultivating that questioning.
Okay.
That mindful approach to everything. Don't just take things at face value.
Okay.
Dig a little deeper.
Yeah.
Be willing to challenge your own assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
And remember that there are always, other perspectives out there.
Yeah. Truth isn't some static, unchanging thing.
No.
It's a dynamic process.
Yeah.
It requires us to be engaged, to be reflective, and to be open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
That's true.
And who knows, maybe that's where the real learning begins.
Right.
Well, that is it for our exploration of the essence of truth with Martin Heidegger.
Yeah.
It has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
And we hope that it has left you with
more questions than answers.
More questions than answers.
Right.
And a renewed sense of wonder about the world and your place in it.
Absolutely.
Until next time.